In this WrestleTalk news, Eddie Kingston suspended by AEW, news on who came up with the finish for Jon Moxley versus CM Punk, AEW might be pursuing WWE for alleged contract tampering, and Pete reviews last night's episode of AEW Dynamite. Subscribe and enable notifications to Always On for daily wrestling news videos.
Support WrestleTalk!
A few weeks ago, the idea of AEW stars being suspended for their backstage behaviour was almost unthinkable, but given the increased reports of backstage unrest in the company, perhaps it was only a matter of time. Reports were published yesterday that AEW President Tony Khan would be holding a large talent meeting to discuss the apparent unrest which included a very prominent star getting a real suspension. According to both Dave Meltzer and Fightful Select, Eddie Kingston recently served a secret suspension following a genuine altercation with Sammy Guevara. The reports note the two men had a verbal dispute, and Fightful Select's report added the rumour is that Kingston went as far as swinging at Guevara after Sammy made a disrespectful comment about Kingston's physique. It isn't clear how long Kingston was suspended for, but the report is that the suspension has now been served, so it doesn't appear to have been a particularly long one. Title of Pete's sex tape. Interestingly, Kingston and Guevara had been feuding on TV lately, and the two men were set for a match at All Out, but plans may have been scrapped. Kingston challenged Guevara to a match on the August 3rd episode of AEW Dynamite, a challenge Guevara would accept during a taping of AEW Rampage a week later. But when the show aired, Guevara's challenge acceptance was nowhere to be seen. It isn't clear whether the suspension and the possible cancellation of the match are linked, but my grandma did always tell me there's no such thing as coincidence, although she did tell me that after I started asking her why I look so much like the postman. Since then, Eddie Kingston has issued a statement to PW Insider about this suspension, saying, "You know the truth, I wouldn't lie. I was wrong for being unprofessional. That is the blind fact. He did what he did, and the public can judge that, but I know for a fact I was wrong." But despite the unrest in AEW, the promotion is still managing to put on some incredible matches, including last night's Jon Moxley versus CM Punk Undisputed AEW Championship match. Pete will have a full review of the show later on, but as you will likely have already seen, Jon Moxley defeated CM Punk to become the undisputed AEW World Champion, winning in just 5 minutes in a pretty dominant display. According to Fightful Select, the interesting call for the match to take place on last night's AEW rather than at the upcoming All Out show may have come directly from Moxley, with one source reporting it was his idea and that Punk would eventually agree to the idea. Will Washington also noted earlier this week that there was a suggestion AEW had wanted to increase the buzz and ticket sales for last night's show, so having the title unification match last night was a way of doing that. In terms of my completely unfounded speculation, given how short the match was, perhaps AEW simply didn't think the finish they had planned would satisfy a pay-per-view main event crowd, so the call was made to change the date. And just before we get into Pete's review, Tony Khan has allegedly told talent that he has sent a warning to WWE, with PW Insider reporting it was a warning for them not to tamper with his talent. Fightful Select then backed up this report and revealed the contents of the warning email specifically related to contract tampering allegations. It isn't clear exactly what contract tampering is being referred to, but there were reports last week that WWE had contacted at least one AEW star who is currently under contract. And now a hot tag to Pint-Sized Pete for his review of AEW Dynamite.
And now it's time for my review of Holy sh**, wrestling is so much fun, guys. I mean, AEW Dynamite in about 5 minutes. The show began with a great opening promo between Chris Jericho, Daniel Garcia, and Bryan Danielson, where Jericho wanted Garcia to apologize for his actions last week. Danielson was telling Garcia that he agrees with the crowd. He's a wrestler, and Garcia was caught between the pair of them. After saying he can't do this right now and telling Jericho to leave him alone, he tried to leave. Jericho tried to stop him, but he pushed Jericho to the ground and walked out, allowing Jericho and Danielson to set up their all-out match about who the best wrestler actually is. It's Danielson, by the way. This was some great emotional storytelling, and while we can most likely see where this story is going, I'm all for it. And even if we can see where the stories are going, sometimes we can't, like we saw later on this show. Dax Harwood then faced Jay Lethal in a very fun match, which featured some fierce chops and fantastic chain wrestling sequences, which ended with a roll-up counter after roll-up counter after roll-up counter, leading to Lethal getting the win with the tights. Post-match, it was announced that the trios match at All Out with FTR and Wardlow teaming up would actually be against Jay Lethal and the Motor City Machine Guns. This makes me very happy. Thumbs up here. Thunder Rosa announced in a backstage segment that she is being forced to relinquish the AEW Women's World title due to injury, and that there will be a fatal four-way to determine the interim champion at All Out between Toni Storm, Britt Baker, Jamie Hayter, and Hikaru Shida. I think Toni Storm is probably winning it, but I also wouldn't be opposed to Hayter or Shida winning either. They should genuinely just replicate Moxley's interim run, just wrestle every week and put on banging matches. Later on in the show, Britt Baker defeated hometown gal Kylian King relatively quickly, and all four competitors in the four-way at All Out brawled. This was fine. Colton Gunn faced his daddy ass next, and while I am very happy Scissor Me Daddy Ass is back, this match was nothing too special. Stokely Hathaway caused a distraction outside by attacking the Acclaimed, and Colton hit a low blow and the Colt 45 to win. Swerve in Our Glory saved the Acclaimed from a post-match beatdown, and later made the match between these two teams for All Out, which I'm very much looking forward to. They announced that the Death Triangle vs United Empire match will be the main event of the show next, to which I promptly said, wait, what the f***? They've been hyping Moxley vs Punk as the biggest Dynamite match in history. How could it conceivably not be the main event? Though it did definitely strongly suggest there were shenanigans afoot for that match, I was still curious. And that match came next. Moxley vs Punk. What many people thought would be the main event of All Out wasn't even the main event of Dynamite. I was watching this, waiting for the angle to happen, and it certainly did, just a couple of minutes into the match. Punk hit an enziguri to Mox and immediately grabbed his surgically repaired foot, writhing in agony on the floor. Mox stretched that foot out, hit two Death Riders, and pinned Punk for a total match time of 2 minutes and 59 seconds. Jon Moxley is your new AEW World Champion. Punk was helped to the back, looking heartbroken in the process, and everyone watching had a collective Undertaker streak broken meme guy face. This is an insane result. For everyone who thought the result was a foregone conclusion, this turned everything on its head. When Punk returned, oh, it's obvious Punk versus Moxley will be the main event of All Out in Chicago. Oh, it's on Dynamite? Well, it's obvious Punk will beat Moxley to have a bigger match at All Out in Chicago. And now Moxley beat Punk in under 3 minutes. What does this mean for All Out? What does this mean for Punk? What does this mean for the AEW World title? I have no idea. And you know what? I don't care, because I am completely and utterly along for the ride. Wrestling is so much fun right now, and I'm just here to enjoy it. I don't know where the story is going, and I love it. When AEW's backs were against the wall, as WWE's on a hot streak right now, they give their show a complete shot in the arm, and now All Out seems completely unpredictable, because we don't even know what the AEW World title match will be. Okay, maybe just a little speculation. I can't help it. MJF? Is he coming back? Maybe? What do you think they could make for All Out that would feel big enough? Let me know in the comments. I'd be very curious to see your thoughts. Later in the show, Moxley cut a brilliant backstage promo saying, "Oh, was that not how it was meant to go? Best in the world, my ass," and repeatedly said, "My time is now." Jon Moxley versus John Cena at All Out? Oh hey, that isn't the end of the show though, as Christian Cage cut a promo accepting Jungle Boy's match for All Out. I'm sure everyone paid attention and wasn't still decompressing from what we'd just seen. Ricky Starks reignited the crowd though with his in-ring promo, calling out Powerhouse Hobbs for All Out, firing up and cutting a scathing and brilliantly passionate promo about their time together and how he saw Hobbs as a friend before he attacked his neck. The same neck that he broke over a year ago, the same neck that Hobbs called him about every week to check how it was healing. This was masterful stuff, and another huge thumbs up from me. And then we had the main event trios match of Death Triangle versus United Empire, and hot damn guys, this might be one of my favorite Dynamite matches. The sheer amount of insanely fast back and forth flips, counters, dives, twists, turns, holds, kicks, cutters, destroyers was unbelievable. I can't go through this spot for spot because I'd be here till next week, but the finish of the match came when Kip Sabian was ringside under his cardboard box, which distracted Pac. Swerve though, it wasn't Sabian, but it was some other dude who'd been forced into that position with tape over his mouth when the real Kip Sabian attacked Pac, laying him out, allowing United Empire to triple team Rey Fenix for the win. While I've been down on the Kip Sabian story for months simply because it didn't progress, nor was mentioned by commentary or anything, the crowd reaction to Sabian returning was big, and the sustained Kip chants following the attack indicate to me at least that this was a success, so fair play. And United Empire winning would have been a fine enough end to the show, before you then remembered, that means it's United Empire versus the Elite next week. And then Kenny Omega and the Young Bucks came out, and oh my god guys, Omega versus Ospreay is actually going to happen. Don Callis had to stop Kenny getting into the ring, but those two looked like they legitimately wanted to beat each other up, which They probably do. What an absolutely wild episode of Dynamite. As I mentioned before, the show needed an injection of something fierce, and they got it. The Mox Punk result was completely unexpected. United Empire versus Elite next week, Danielson versus Jericho with Garcia's favor hanging in the balance, some fantastic wrestling. This is an easy 5 out of 5 show. Wrestling is so much fun. My notes for that Punk versus Mox match were super aggressive start, Punk injury, Death Rider, what the f is happening, Death Rider, and then all in caps. What the f is this? Holy f Mox wins, okay, I kind of love this, okay. Just in case you wondered how eloquent I am in real time. I got a ton more thoughts on this, so be sure to check out the full Dynamite podcast review later today with myself and Andy Datson.
In this WrestleTalk news, AEW stars are pissed backstage, like in an angry way, not a drunk way. An upcoming clash between AEW and WWE, Chris Jericho implying WWE want him back, and more.